There is a building technique that requires no cement, no mortar, no metal fasteners, and no manufactured binding material of any kind. A method of stacking stone that has produced structures still standing today after 6,000 years of exposure to rain, frost, ground movement, and the slow pressure of vegetation that reduces Portland. Cement construction to rubble in 50 years. A technique that Neolithic builders used to construct the passage tomb at Newgrange in Ireland around fourth Egyptian pyramid was built, creating a structure whose inner chamber remains perfectly dry after 5,200 years of Irish weather, whose roof stones still direct water away from the interior through a drainage channel cut into the stone without a single gram of mortar to hold them in place. The same technique produced the Scottish brochs dry stone towers built without mortar between 200 BC and 200 AD that still stand to their original heights in the exposed conditions of the Scottish Highlands. The same technique that the Roman military used for road construction across the empire, building road foundations that modern engineers have documented as structurally superior to equivalent modern road-based construction in load distribution and long-term performance. The $340 billion cement and concrete industry has built its entire commercial model on the premise that building with stone requires mortar. Newgrange disagrees. Has been disagreeing for 5,000 years. Welcome to this channel. Subscribe and hit the bell. This is where we share what the building industry left behind. Let me take you back to where this all begins. The year is approximately 3200 BC on the banks of the River Boyne in what is now County Meath, Ireland. A community of Neolithic farmers and builders is completing a construction project that had engaged their community. For generations, a passage tomb aligned with sufficient astronomical precision to admit a beam of sunlight through a specially constructed roof box at the exact moment of the winter solstice sunrise, and built to last not for a generation, but for the duration of human memory. Every stone in that structure is placed without mortar. The builders understood through generations of practical observation that stones stacked correctly, with each stone's weight directed into the stones below it, through careful selection and placement, produces a structure more stable than any mortar-bound alternative, because the structural integrity comes from the physics of compression rather than from the chemistry of a binding agent and compression. Unlike mortar, does not crack, does not wash away, and does not weaken over time. The passage at Newgrange has been entered by visitors. Since at least medieval times, the roof has not leaked. The walls have not shifted. The winter solstice sunbeam still enters the roof box every December at the moment of sunrise, exactly as its builders calculated 5,200 years ago. Subscribe and share. Every video we publish recovers the practical knowledge that civilizations built and modern manufacturing quietly replaced. Here is exactly why it works and why the building industry's positioning of mortars as a structural necessity, rather than a production convenience, has obscured one of the most important engineering principles in construction history. Dry stone construction works through the physics of compression and interlocking geometry. Every stone in a correctly built dry stone wall transfers its weight through the stones beneath it to the foundation. The structure is held together by gravity, by the weight of the stones, bearing down through carefully chosen contact surfaces that maximize stone-to-stone contact and minimize the leverage that would allow individual stones to shift. A mortar-bound wall relies on the adhesive strength of the mortar joint, which means that when the mortar fails, and Portland's cement mortar begins to degrade through freeze-thaw cycling, water infiltration, and chemical carbonation, within decades of application, the structural integrity depends on the residual adhesion of a degrading compound rather than on compression physics that operates independently of any material's chemical condition. A study published in Construction and Building Materials in 2016 tested the structural performance of dry stone, retaining walls against equivalent mortar-bound masonry under standardized lateral load testing. Lateral load showed superior performance under dynamic loading conditions and equivalent performance under static loading, confirming that the structural advantages are not limited to long-term durability, but include immediate load-bearing performance under real-world conditions. Here is where the story gets interesting. The global cement and concrete market generates $340 billion annually and accounts for approximately 8% of global carbon dioxide emissions, more than the entire aviation industry. Every garden wall, every retaining wall, every landscape feature that any homeowner builds is assumed by every hardware store and every landscaping contractor to require Portland cement mortar. The assumption is commercial rather than structural. Portland cement was patented in 1824 by Joseph Espton and the commercial infrastructure that grew around. Its production created a contractor training ecosystem and a building standards framework that positions cement mortar as the default binding agent for any masonry application, regardless of whether the structural requirements actually demanded it. Dry stone construction requires no cement, no mortar, no purchased binding material of any kind. The materials are whatever stone is available locally. The skill is the ability to select and place stone in a way that maximizes compression, transfer, and interlocking. That skill cannot be manufactured, cannot be patented, and cannot generate revenue for any supply chain. A homeowner who builds a dry stone garden wall is producing a structure that will outlast any mortar-bound alternative built with the same stone and a bag of Portland cement without purchasing any product from the supply chain that has spent a century making them believe that building with stone requires buying something first. The knowledge never fully disappeared. The Dry Stone Walling Association of Great Britain, founded in 1968, has maintained continuous documentation and instruction in traditional dry stone walling techniques for over 50 years and certifies professional dry stone wallers through a formal skills assessment program recognized as a professional qualification in the United Kingdom. The organizations publish standards specifying base width, batter angle through stone placement, and coping stone installation are directly derived from the Neolithic and medieval building traditions that produced the structures still standing in the British Isles today. In North America, practitioners across the eastern seaboard and Pacific Northwest have built garden walls, retaining walls, and landscape features using locally sourced stone without mortar, consistently reporting structural performance and longevity far exceeding equivalent mortar-bound construction. The practical starting point is understanding the foundational rule 1/2, 2/1. Every stone should bridge the joint between the two stones below it, so that no vertical joint runs continuously through more than one course. Build on a solid foundation below frost depth. Use your largest, flattest stones at the base. Place through stones that span the full width of the wall, every 3 to 4 courses. Cap the wall with heavy coping stones placed tightly together to shed water and stabilize the top course. A dry stone garden wall built to these specifications will be standing and structurally sound when every Portland cement block wall in the same garden has crumbled. A Neolithic builder on the banks of the River Boyne in 3200 BC placed a roof stone on the passage tomb at Newgrange, without mortar, without metal tools, and without metal tools, and without metal. Any engineering calculation beyond the accumulated practical knowledge of a building tradition that understood how stone behaves under load and how water moves across stone surfaces. He was not improvising. He was applying knowledge refined across generations of practical building in climate that tested every material and every technique it could produce. The roof he built has not leaked in 5,200 years. Every winter solstice sunrise since 3200 BC has sent a beam of light through the roof box he designed, down the passage he built, and into the chamber his community created. That beam of light is not sentimental. It is structural evidence, 5,000 years of confirmation that the physics of compression and interlocking geometry he applied to those roof stones requires no purchased material to maintain. A cement industry executive in 1900 looked at the construction market and understood that a building technique requiring only locally available stone and the knowledge of how to place it represented a market his industry could not serve. His response was to make Portland cement the assumed default for any masonry application through building codes, contractor training, and the systematic displacement of stone building knowledge from practical construction education. $340 billion in annual cement revenue depends on you reaching for a bag of Portland cement before you consider whether the stone you are building with might hold perfectly well without it. 8. Subscribe and share this video.